The princess thought her human husband was weak, until even the gods bowed HFY. Princess Elira grew up believing this more than anyone. She trained with plasma blades before she could fully read. She learned battle formations before court etiquette. Her teachers praised her discipline, her sharp mind, and her physical power. By the time she reached adulthood, she was known across the empire as a future queen forged for war. So when the High Council announced that she would marry a human, the palace fell silent. Humans were not feared. They were not worshipped. They were ordinary. The war with humanity had dragged on for years, not because humans were stronger, but because they were stubborn. They refused to surrender even when outmatched. Their ships were simple. Their weapons lacked elegance. Their bodies were fragile compared to Valyric's warriors, and yet they endured. The marriage was meant to end the conflict, a symbol of peace, a binding promise between two species. To Princess Elira, it felt like an insult. On the day her husband arrived, the royal court gathered in full armor and ceremonial dress. The ceiling above shimmered with starlight, and banners of ancient victories hung from the walls. At the center stood the princess, tall and proud, her expression calm but cold. The doors opened. The human walked in alone. He wore no armor, no royal colors, no visible weapons. His clothes were plain, dark, and practical. He was average in height, average in build, with calm eyes and a posture that showed neither fear nor arrogance. Whispers spread through the court. That is him. This was the man she was to marry. His name was Elia's Ward. He bowed, not deeply, not proudly, but respectfully. His voice was steady when he spoke. I greet the Valyric's empire in peace. But respect did not come with the vows. In the days that followed, Elias lived within the royal palace. He walked its long halls quietly, observing more than speaking. Servants watched him closely. Guards laughed when they thought he could not hear. Princess Elira maintained distance. She was never cruel, but she was never warm. She treated him like a guest who would soon leave, not a partner who would stand beside her. She noticed many things about him. He rose early, often before the palace guards changed shifts. He spent time in the archives, reading old star charts and war records. He asked questions, not about power or privilege, but about history. And when nobles tried to provoke him, he never reacted. One evening, a high-ranking commander mocked him openly during a banquet. "So," the commander said loudly, lifting his drink, "this is the human who survived our war. I expected scars, or strength, or at least armor." In memory, ancient temples began to activate across multiple worlds. Energy readings spiked in places untouched for thousands of cycles. Priests whispered of prophecy. The gods were stirring. The Valyric's gods, known as the Ascended Ones, were not myths. They were beings of immense power who once shaped entire systems. Long ago, they withdrew from direct rule, leaving the empire to govern itself. But their presence was always felt, until now. The first sign came when a distant colony went silent. No distress call, no debris, just gone. Then another world lost power across its entire hemisphere in seconds. Panic spread. The High Council summoned the priests and scholars. Ancient records were opened. Symbols once forbidden glowed with life again. The Ascended Ones were returning. Princess Elira prepared for war. She reviewed fleet deployments and planetary defenses. If the gods returned, the empire would welcome them as protectors. That was the belief. Elias read the same reports quietly. One night, he stood on a balcony overlooking the capital world. The stars above shimmered unnaturally, as if space itself was tense. Princess Elira joined him, drawn by duty rather than comfort. "You should stay inside," she said. "What comes next will not concern you." "Our history," Elias replied, "calls them something else." Their voices echoed across every world at once, deep and overwhelming. "Children of Valyrics," they declared, "your age of autonomy has ended." She had trained her entire life for war, and now war meant nothing. Elias stood beside her, calm, still. As the gods' attention swept the planet, one of them paused, its gaze locked onto the palace. Onto him. The voice returned, quieter now. Human. Bring him to us. You cannot face gods. The Ascended Ones hovered in silence, their massive forms glowing with ancient power. Every screen, every signal, every thought across the empire felt their presence. Princess Elira stood rigid on the palace platform as Elias was escorted forward. Her guards surrounded him, weapons raised, though she knew how useless those weapons were now. Entire fleets had failed in seconds. What chance did a few royal guards have? Elias walked calmly, his hands empty, his posture relaxed. He did not resist. He did not tremble. That disturbed her more than fear would have. The gods lowered one of their vast forms closer to the palace. The air grew heavy, pressing down on lungs and minds alike. Many nobles collapsed where they stood. Some cried, some prayed. Elias did neither. Human, the god spoke again. Its voice echoed inside thought itself. Your kind was sealed away, forgotten. Why do you stand among our children? Princess Elira clenched her fists. She wanted to pull him back, to order him silent. He was speaking to gods as if they were equals. The god's light flickered. You speak without permission, it said. You show no reverence. The High Council rushed forward, kneeling despite the crushing pressure. Great Ascended Ones, the eldest counselor cried, this human speaks out of ignorance. He is weak, unimportant. Punish him if you must, but spare our empire. And I am not unimportant. The shock was immediate. The ground cracked beneath the platform. Energy surged through the air. Several guards were thrown back unconscious. Elira stumbled but stayed on her feet. The god's voice thundered. You refuse the command of your creators. You did not create us, he said. You tried to contain us. We remember enough. And in that time we learned. The gods recoiled slightly. Fear spread across the city like wildfire. Elira's heart pounded. She stared at her husband, realizing that this was not magic, not divine power. This was something else. Stand down, Elias said quietly. I did not come to fight. We learned long ago that strength alone invites destruction. Endurance invites survival. His expression was gentle, almost apologetic. Protecting our future, he said. Our, she repeated. He nodded. You chose peace. That matters. That is why you fear us. You already lost the last war, he said calmly. You just don't remember how it ended. Priests fell silent. The gods began to pull back into the void, their light dimming. We will watch, they said, and we will decide. Elias rushed to her side, helping her stand. You faced gods, she whispered, without fear. Human Elias, the eldest said, voice trembling, what are you? Far beyond the stars, the Ascended Ones watched in silence. And for the first time in ages, they were unsure what would come next. Cities still stood. Stars still burned in the sky. Yet something fundamental had changed. Faith no longer felt solid. The old certainty that the Ascended Ones ruled everything was gone, replaced by confusion and fear. Princess Elira felt it everywhere she walked. In the palace halls, priests whispered instead of chanting. Soldiers trained harder than ever, not for glory but for uncertainty. The High Council argued behind sealed doors, their authority weakened by what everyone had witnessed. And at the center of it all stood Elias. He did not claim power. He did not command attention. That made him more unsettling than any conqueror. Princess Elira watched him closely now. Where once she had seen weakness, she now saw restraint. Where she had seen silence, she now recognized control. He spoke only when needed, and when he did, people listened, even those who hated the idea of listening to a human. One evening, Elira found him in the palace archive again. He stood among ancient data crystals and star maps older than her empire's founding. You knew this would happen, she said quietly. Elias turned. I suspected it might. It's survival logic. Unknown energy forming beyond the outer system, similar to the Ascended Ones, but smaller, more concentrated. Instead of overwhelming force, this presence felt precise, controlled. The gods had learned. They are isolating one world, a strategist reported. A border colony, civilian population. He stepped closer to the projection, studying the energy patterns. They are careful now, he said. That means they remember. People were gathering in open spaces, looking at the sky in fear. The ascended presence hovered above them, silent and waiting. Elira felt her chest tighten. They'll destroy the world if we don't act. Symbols flared, human symbols, not Valyrics. The system responded instantly. Hidden files opened. Star maps shifted. History rewrote itself in real time. "What is this?" Elira whispered. "Our memory," Elias said. "The part we buried so we could survive." "We couldn't overpower them," Elias explained. "So we learned them, their patterns, their limits. They couldn't be sure we wouldn't come back stronger." "I will not kneel." Elira stepped beside him. "Then you won't go alone." The people watched from below as Elias and Elira stepped onto the open platform. The god spoke. "You defy us again, human. Then you will witness the truth. We are the species that learned to live without gods," he said, "and learned to stand when they returned." "Neither were we meant to survive," he replied. The entity withdrew, vanishing into the void. Cheers erupted across the colony. Elira exhaled shakily, her legs weak. Elias steadied her. She looked at him, eyes shining. "You carry the weight of your entire species." But far beyond the stars, something else watched. The remaining ascended ones gathered in silence. "They remember," one said. "They are ready," another replied. For the first time since their rise, the gods were not deciding humanity's fate. They were reacting to it. And Princess Elira, standing beside her human husband, understood the final truth. He had been waiting. The galaxy held its breath. After the retreat at the colony world, silence spread across the stars. No divine voices echoed. No fleets moved. Ancient temples across the Valyrics Empire went dark, their glowing symbols fading like dying embers. For the first time in recorded history, the gods were not watching openly. Princess Elira stood on the highest balcony of the palace, looking out at the endless sky. The wind moved her ceremonial cloak gently, but her thoughts were heavy. Behind her, Elias approached quietly. "They are gathering," he said. She did not turn. "I know." In caution, the High Council had learned the truth now. Humanity's sealed history, the unfinished war, the reason the gods had never truly ruled humans the way they ruled others. And now the gods faced a choice they had avoided for ages. Confront humanity fully, or step aside. "They won't attack directly," Elira said. "They're afraid to." But fear doesn't always lead to peace. They appeared at a distance, massive but restrained, forming a circle of radiant shapes beyond the edge of the system. They were not invading. They were approaching carefully. Every screen across the empire activated at once. Every being saw them. The largest among them spoke. "Human," the god said, "you have forced a reckoning." "That was never my goal." The gods shifted, their light pulsing slowly. "Humanity disrupts balance," the first god said. "You evolve beyond containment, beyond prediction." The gods remembered. They remembered a species that survived extinction events, sealed stars, broken worlds. A species that learned patience instead of worship. A species that waited. "What do you want, human?" the lead god asked. Elias looked around at the watching empire, at Elira, at the stars. "Nothing," he said, "except freedom." "Freedom to choose," Elias replied, "without fear of divine punishment." The ascended ones fell silent for a long time. Then slowly something unthinkable happened. The lead god lowered itself, not collapsing, not retreating, lowering. The others followed. Their vast forms dimmed, shrinking slightly, their presence easing. It was not submission in the way mortals understood. It was acknowledgement. "We will withdraw," the god said. "We will no longer rule." Before disappearing completely, the lead god spoke one final time. "Humanity," it said, "is no longer contained." They stepped aside, he corrected gently. She looked at him with new eyes, not as a political husband, not as a symbol, but as a partner who had changed the galaxy without striking a blow. Later, in the throne chamber, the High Council gathered. "We must rebuild," the eldest counselor said. "Our faith, our laws, our future." "There will be no gods above us," she said firmly. "Only responsibility." "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Of a human who refused to kneel, of an alien princess who chose partnership over pride, and of a species that did not conquer the stars.